Jovan. Buha! Buha!
Yo, I'm Jovan Buha, Lakers beat writer for The Athletic, and welcome to another Lakers postgame reaction show. Just got back from Crypto.com Arena, where the Lakers won 140-109 to improve to 50-31. The first time they have won 50 games in a regular season since the 2019-20 title season, and clinch the number 3 seed, which means they will know their opponent going into next week. They will know their opponent as of Sunday afternoon. And we also know that it is likely going to be the Golden State Warriors or the Minnesota Timberwolves. There are several permutations of ways it could play out, but realistically, assuming that the Minnesota Timberwolves beat the Utah Jazz and the Denver Nuggets beat the Houston Rockets, who are going to be most likely resting their guys. If those two teams take care of business, I think realistic assumptions, but not guaranteed assumptions, of course, then it will come down to the Clippers-Warriors game in San Francisco. And if the Warriors win that game, they will be the 6th seed and they will play the Lakers. If they lose that game, then Minnesota will jump up and be the 6th seed and the Lakers will play them. But we got, we'll touch on that and much more the rest of the show. But before we get started, you guys know the drill. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button and make sure you like and comment, all that stuff. And for those listening on Apple Podcasts, make sure you follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, etc. My brain's all over the place. As I see with our first super chat today, I will break protocol and put this one up first. Mitch Potter, cool seeing you on the herd today, Buha. Thank you for that. It was a fun day, a bit of a wild day. I did the herd this morning. Then I went downtown and interviewed Cooper Flagg and wrote a newsletter on him winning the John Wooden Award and just what he's doing with his future and if he's going to rewatch the Duke Houston game ever. And he said he was not going to. So that was the headline with that. Then, of course, going to crypto for Lakers Rockets and LA clinching the number 3 seed. So wild day. But I did put up the video of me on the herd on my YouTube channel. So for those of you who have not checked it out yet, please be sure to do so. Appreciate it, Mitch. Thank you for the super chat. But back to the game, and I want to give a big shout out to all of you in the chat. Big shout out to the late night gang. I appreciate you, and I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you waiting. I know I ended up canceling the other chat, so I didn't see if there was any super chats. If there were, please let me know and I will answer them. But I appreciate you all, and let's get into it. So Buha's big picture is LA earns the number 3 seed, and I want to take a second to just talk about this season, right? And I did this a little bit on the last show, though that was more Luka focused, of course, with them beating Dallas. But I just think that this has been a wild season for the Lakers, largely in a positive way. I think there's been far more positives than negatives, but this is the first time since the title season that they are not in the play-in tournament. This is the first time since the title season that they've won 50 games. It's the first time in Luka's career that he's going to have home court advantage in a playoff series, not just in the first round, but in any round. And this is a guy who's already on par, on pace to being one of the best playoff performers of all time. Is points per game, and he's always had his teams overachieve in the playoffs comparatively to, well, like when you look at his opponents and then you look at his teams and how his teams fare, either pushing it to 6 or 7 or even winning the series. He's in rare air with that. So a lot of positives from the results of this season. It's also interesting to hear that after the game. So Lakers win the game and they clinch the 3 seed. You see LeBron and Austin jumping up and down and like fist pumping on the bench. Then JJ comes out to speak with us and he is drenched and his hair is all floppy and messy. And he's wearing an Eagles hoodie. And FUD aside with that was that Luka Doncic when he was walking out of the locker room to go do his media, he sees JJ in the hallway and he's like, take that shit off. And JJ's like, this is the only thing I have dry on, like, you know, available to me right now. And Luka's like, you ain't from Philly. And like, just so that just shows you like that's how Luka is. He's always doing the little jabs, but like playfully, and like, you know, he's I call him jovial. I think he's got a jovial personality, but he is taken, you know, he's still got that side that likes to take the jabs in a you know, playful way. But so JJ comes out, his hair is all floppy, and he says there was 8 buckets of ice that got dumped on him, like ice water, and that he estimated there was like $17,000 worth of carpet damage in the Lakers locker room. I can't attest, you know, was in there briefly. No one spoke in the locker room. Everyone spoke in the press conference setting, but like there were towels all over the carpet. It was drenched. The floor, you could hear the soaking just every time you stepped on it. So there certainly was some carpet damage in there, and I don't know if it's $17,000 worth, but it is a nice locker room, so potentially. But you know, so that was the backdrop to post game. But then Rui spoke, and Rui said that before the season, JJ said his 2 goals for the regular season were to win 50 plus games and be the 3 seed or better. And the Lakers hit both of those. So I think we will have plenty of time to go through the future with this team in terms of the first round matchup, the playoff path. I will do some of that with one of my later takeaways. But I think it is important to be present for a second and just acknowledge like the season that they've had. This has been the best Lakers season since the title season, in the regular season at least. From a wins perspective, from a seeding perspective, of course, you know, within that there was a conference finals appearance. So we'll see where this team ends up going. They basically just have to win a game in the conference finals to eclipse that 2023 season. But from a regular season process perspective, this has been the best season since 2020. And I think first and foremost, JJ Redick, and even to take a step back, you know, Jeannie and Rob, for recognizing JJ's potential and giving him the chance. I think they all deserve credit for that. It's been a big hit with JJ. Like, JJ is a really good coach. I have a ballot this year. I am going to put him on my coach of the year ballot. I'm not quite sure where. I think Kenny Atkinson is going to win. And I think based on them returning largely the same roster pre DeAndre Hunter trade, that I think Kenny Atkinson is going to get my first place vote, but JJ might get my second place vote. And I think he's been overlooked in this process. And it's a tough coach of the year race. JB Bickerstaff, Ime Udoka, Mark Dagnall, Ty Lue. There's a lot of good coaches and a lot of coaches who have had their teams overachieve, but the Lakers have gone through so many iterations of this group where like it's almost felt like month to month they've had a different identity. You had the identity at the beginning of the season with the OG starters from last year. Then you had the lull that they had, and then reworking that with moving D'Lo to the bench and trying out different guys. Then you eventually settled on Max, and then it felt like they had an identity there. Then AD goes down. Then they have this little mini kind of starts the real transition to centerless basketball and like longer shifts of that rather than like a random 3 or 4 minute segment during a game or during a quarter. Then Luka trade happens, and then Luka's out for a little bit, so that they kind of have this in between period. Then Luka makes his debut, but then he's a little rusty and out of rhythm, coming off the longest injury absence of his career. And then you start to see them come into form with Luka, but they also were a much different team at that point in terms of identity, where they're a far more defensive team than offensive team, despite on paper having Luka, LeBron, Austin, etc. And then now, more recently, they've shifted to being more of an offensive team entering tonight's game. Since LeBron and Rui came back, they were 8th in offense, 27th in defense. However, over the past like 10, 11 days, you've seen, starting with that Houston game, the defense has looked better. I think that the Houston game was good. The first OKC game was good. I think that third quarter in the second OKC game was good. And I think there were at least two and a half of the 4 quarters against Dallas were good. So like they've been trending in a positive direction. I thought tonight, I'm not really going to focus much on tonight's game because Houston rested most of their guys. And I think we got some bigger picture stuff to talk about, but like, I thought the defense was like, again, some stretches of like, especially early, they had a shaky start. They allowed 32 points in the first quarter, but I thought the second quarter was a much better quarter. Fourth quarter before garbage time was much better. And even in garbage time, they were able to extend the lead. So I think the defense has been trending in the right direction. And we're starting to see, even JJ, I asked him pregame about the defense, and he said he feels like some of the recent stretches have actually been even better than the 20-4 stretch when they were first in the league in defense, which I didn't even mention that. Like they had a 20-4 stretch where they were first in the league in defense. And on paper, this is not the best defense in the league, but to be that for over a quarter of the season is a testament to JJ and LeBron and all the guys, the coaching staff, roster, everybody. So I think starts at the top, and then, of course, Rob making the Luka trade, that being a huge, I mean, the biggest, arguably biggest trade in NBA history, biggest trade in sports history. Like it's in that conversation, and that still being a topic that like daily, you talk about Luka and the Luka trade, and you come up with some new take or some whatever on it. You're going to get views, you're going to get clicks. So like people are still milking that all these months later, and like that's just been such a monumental moment, not just in this season, but in NBA history. So Rob, of course, LeBron, who I think has a real case for the number 5 spot on MVP ballots, real spot for the number 5 spot, a real case for number 5 spot on first team All NBA, and just this has been, in my opinion, his best defensive season in multiple years, which at the beginning of the season, I was not expecting that, but he's turned back the clock, and I think he's starting to look more like himself since, a little bit more distance since the injury. For what it's worth, he is fine. That's what JJ said after the game. We did not speak with LeBron, but he said he's fine in terms of the groin, and there's no concern there. And then Austin taking the leap he's taken, I think he should be in the most improved conversation. And I there's part of me with Austin that does. I've been so high on Austin that part of me is like, I feel like if he was empowered this way last year, and we did see like stretches of that, he could have done this last year, to be completely honest. Like I think there has been an elevation with his playmaking and with his handle and his ability to create separation. And like, I think his bag has gotten deeper and more efficient and effective. So I think there is real improvement with Austin this year, but I also think like he had kind of showed he could do this, and he just was. I mean, he got benched 9 games into the season, which I will never understand. Forever. I just will never understand that decision. But I think Austin, a big part of being the steady number 3, but even stepping up as the number 2, number 1 some nights. AD for the first part of the season, I think he was Lakers' best player for the first couple months of the season. He carried a heavier load offensively. I think there was some defensive slippage, but he really helped with a new role, sort of over stretches, and still playing the 5, even though he didn't want to. I think AD deserves his props. Of course, Luka now taking the mantle of the highest usage guy, the offensive leader, and the future, the present and future franchise player. I think Luka has come in and just elevated everything that the Lakers are doing, especially on the offensive end, but he's also fit in very well defensively. And I think that's the biggest misconception with his game is yes, as a point of attack guy on the ball, you can target him and beat him off the dribble, but within a team scheme and his anticipation, his playing passing lanes, just his basketball IQ defensively, and just his size, he's huge. Like that's a factor defensively. Good defensive rebounder, really good in slapping at the ball, deflections, steals, etc. Then you could go down the list. DFS trade was huge. That remade the Lakers' small ball identity, the centerless identity. Those lineups struggled pre-DFS trade. He's come in and been awesome, leading the team in plus minus, leading the team in net rating. He's been a huge part of the Lakers' success Rui and the growth in Rui's game, the consistency in Rui's game, but him continuing to grow as a shooter, as a cutter, as a finisher. I think defensively, he's taken on a lot of tough assignments. We've seen the impact. The lineup data has all supported Rui's defense. Jackson, coming from being a guy that entering the season, fans and even myself was like, I think it was, I don't know if it was the right move that the Lakers gave him a player option, and like, where would he be if not? And he did close last season well. So I think, like, in retrospect, it did. There were some positive signs to end last season, but there was still some uncertainty as to like his growth and where he was at. He had his ups and downs through the first course of the first half of the season, and then missed a month, and then came back, and then I thought was pretty rough. Like during that stretch, I thought Christian Koloko outplayed him, and then after a few games, he rounded into form and has been awesome. And we thought AD goes down, Lakers are kind of screwed. They trade AD, Lakers are really screwed. They trade for Mark Williams, that they rescind it. That it's like, okay, they're going with Jackson and like G League guys. And Jackson has been like, recently I think there's been a little bit of slippage and his role has been reduced, but like he has exceeded expectations. He's exceeded a minimum contract. Jackson has been really, really good and really important for this group. Talk about Gabe and his shooting, his defense, his steadiness. And even when he's not making shots, he just brings a certain level of maturity and professionalism and something they quite honestly haven't had at the guard position always in recent years. And like, I think that is a valuable thing that Gabe brings. Big game experience. And I think he's been a big part. Finding Jordan Goodwin, Trey Jemison, Christian Koloko, those guys hitting as two-way guys and G League finds and South Bay guys. Bronny and his development. I'm pretty sure I hit. Max, pre-trade also and his development. Pretty much hit everybody. But this has been an awesome season for the Lakers. I can say personally, this has been the most fun I've had covering the Lakers in my 5 seasons covering the Lakers as a beat writer. And parts of it was like the first couple of years were affected by COVID and locker room access was different and whatnot. So it's really been like 3 years of like normal access and whatnot. But comparing it to the past 2 seasons, far and away just more enjoyable basketball, better basketball. I think a real shot to go on a deep playoff run, and they captured lightning in a bottle in 2023, but I think this is more sustainable. And I think this team has a higher ceiling. I think if they get to the conference finals, they're going to win a game at least. So this has just been, I wanted to kind of do like a mini recap of the season and just give the flowers to all of the people who deserve it. And I tried to cover, I think the coaching staff too, just with their defensive game plans, offensive organization. I know some of that stuff has been up and down at times, but for the most part, I think they've done a lot of good stuff. And this has been also, in my opinion, the best coaching job any of the coaches that I've covered have done in a singular season. So I wanted to hit on that before we get into notable performers and then stat of the night. And then we will get into our 3 takeaways. I'll zip through this. Notable performers have to start with Luka, 39 points, 8 rebounds, 7 assists, 13 and 19 shooting, 5 and 9 on threes, 8 of 14 at the free throw line. He just hits a few more free throws. He has a 40 piece. But I think the key with Luka, and I'm going to touch on this a little bit later, 8 for 10 shooting inside the arc and 7 for 8 shooting inside the paint. And one of the things we've seen with Luka recently that has been an encouraging sign has been his finishing and his ability, his burst downhill, and just his floaters, his deceleration around the rim, the decision making. I think he's been in a much better place with that, and that was like really the only thing offensively, aside from occasionally a high turnover game. His finishing had been down compared to where it's previously been at with Dallas, and that is starting to bounce back. And if Luka's finishing the way that he's been finishing lately, he's unguardable. There's just really nothing you can do other than double him and force the ball out of his hands. And then the Lakers have a 4-on-3 or a 3-on-2 advantage. So outside of doubling him and blitzing him and like literally forcing the ball out of his hands, if you're going to guard him one-on-one or switch onto him or whatever, with the way he's shooting the ball and the way he's creating advantages, getting downhill, finishing, he's unguardable right now. So I thought just another really impressive Luka performance. AR, 23 points, 7 rebounds, 6 assists, 9 of 15 shooting. Really only thing with him was 5 turnovers. Also, Luka had 4. LeBron, 14 points, 4 rebounds, 8 assists. He did appeared to tweak his left groin midway through the third quarter, did not return from that point, but also did not go to the locker room. He just remained on the bench. I assume if this game was in doubt at that point, he potentially could have played through it or at least would have made the attempt to play through it. Again, we didn't speak with him post game, but we did speak with JJ. JJ said he's fine and there's nothing to worry about. So taking that at face value, he's fine. There's nothing to worry about. We'll see. I would assume he's not going to play Sunday in Portland. I would assume most of the regulars don't. But who knows? I mean, JJ's been saying they want to win that game. So maybe, I mean, two things can be true. They want to rest some guys and win the game. We'll see. But I would be surprised if LeBron ends up playing Sunday in Portland after tweaking the groin a little bit. Rui, 16 points, 5 rebounds. I thought he was really good tonight. DFS, 18 points, 6 threes. The 3-point shooting was at a high level. Lakers made 19 threes. It is rare for this team to make more threes than free throws by significant. I mean, 4 is not maybe significant, but like for this group, making 4 more threes than free throws, I think is notable. They shot 61% overall, 51% on threes. Jackson only played 12 minutes, but had 7 points, a couple lobs. And Gabe did score, but was a team best plus 25. Jordan Goodwin was at 3 points, 6 rebounds. I thought did a good job cleaning the glass. And then Vando played 19 minutes. I think some of the bench minutes were a little off just because of LeBron's injury and looking at the rest of the guys, they were all in like the low 30s. LeBron ended up being at 22. So if you add another 10 minutes to LeBron, that probably comes at the expense of a combination of Goodwin and Vando. But again, kind of similar to a playoff rotation, looks like the Lakers going with 9 guys and Dalton is on the outside looking in. And the primary guys are the starters, DFS, and then Gabe. Goodwin played more, but that was because of garbage time. And then stat of the night for me, got to go with 50. Lakers hitting 50 wins for the first time since the 2020 season. Like, I guess we could look at the threes and making 19 threes and shooting 51%. That's impressive. 11 steals again tonight. So another, I think, again, good defensive night in terms of defensive playmaking. But I think the big thing for me is Lakers hitting 50 wins and securing the 3 seed. I think that qualifies as stat of the night. And then takeaway number 1 for me is going to be Luka's 2-point shooting. So again, I think this has been the thing that if you wanted to nitpick anything with Luka, it had been like offensively, it had been his 2-point shooting was down a little bit. And especially the finishing in the rim, the finishing in the paint, it was not quite at his pre-injury levels, not quite at his Dallas levels. And I think him unlocking that, you've seen teams like OKC, the best defense in the league. And I don't think they have great matchups for Luka or for LeBron, but like they still have a certain level of size in the front court. They have all these quick perimeter guys who are good at pressuring the ball and playing passing lanes and like forcing you into tough decisions. Did not matter against Luka. Luka was in complete control of the first game and then complete control of the second game until he got ejected. In Dallas, just eviscerated them. And part of that, of course, was the return game and the Lakers maybe feeding him the ball a little bit more than normal. But he still had a certain command of that game. And I think right now, like the thing is, like we're the step back shot, he can get at any moment. And when he's hitting that, he is just, there's no way to really stop that. As we've seen, like bigs will switch on to him and he just creates that separation easily. It doesn't matter size, length, athleticism, like he can create that shot against anybody. But I think that next step was the burst, the getting downhill, And then he's so good at being crafty and shifty and decelerating and using his body. I think he's been using his body more, and you're seeing guys bounce off of him and him create that separation at the rim. So I just think that's something to watch entering the playoffs. And regardless of whether the Lakers play the Warriors or the Timberwolves, which are the two most likely teams as of right now, based on how things look to likely play out, against the Timberwolves and the Warriors, like I think he's going to have certain advantages, of course, just by being Luka, but like in terms of the physicality, I don't think Minnesota has the perimeter guys to match up with him well, as we saw last year in the Western Conference Finals. But then even Golden State, like Draymond can't guard everybody, and he'll probably be guarding LeBron. And I mean, you could throw, I guess it's going to be Moody, Jimmy, coming. Like, I just don't really know what that's going to look like. And I think Luka is going to have a significant advantage, especially if he's scoring inside the arc, because that's sometimes the move is try to force him inside the arc. And when he's regained his jumper, his floater, his finishing, I think that's a real asset for the Lakers within the half court and within a playoff basketball setting. Takeaway number 2 for me is going to be the playoff path crystallizes. So I'm making a couple of assumptions here, but I think these are realistic and educated assumptions that Minnesota will beat Utah, even with Ant suspended, which he picked up his 18 technical. He will be suspended. So that does put that game in like a little jeopardy, but Minnesota should still be able to win against the tanking Utah team. And then you have Denver versus the resting Rockets. Now, it is a Rockets home game, and Denver had a bit of a scare tonight against Memphis where they were losing for most of the game until Jokic and Murray took over with like 3 minutes left and then propelled them to that win that pushed. Memphis is now locked into 8. Like, they'll be in the 7-8 game, but they'll finish 8th, at least in the regular season. So Denver, I guess, is susceptible to, like, they're playing better since the coaching shift, but it's been 2 games, and we don't really know like how much that's sustainable. So Denver's like the wild card here of technically they could, like, if Houston plays their guys, they could easily lose. Even if they don't, Houston kept it relatively close with the Lakers, like at least in the first half, before LA went on that run to close the half. And I mean, I wouldn't be like stunned if Denver somehow tricked that game away. But for now, let's pencil in Denver. They should beat Houston if they take it seriously. So if you have Denver win and Minnesota win, it all comes down to the Clippers versus Warriors game. And if the Clippers win, they are the 5 seed, Minnesota is the 6 seed, and the Warriors are the 7 seed. If the Warriors win, then they are the 6 seed, the Clippers are the 5 seed. Again, this is all assuming that Denver and Minnesota both win. Clippers are 5, Warriors are 6, Minnesota is 7. So for the Lakers, again, there's technically a path to playing Denver in round 1. It would require Denver losing, and there's a whole. There's some. I retweeted. Hollinger put out a if this then this, if this then this. Like, there's a whole thing. You know what? I'll just pull it up anyway because I think it's relevant. For those watching on YouTube, you'll be able to see it. 1 second. Going to share my screen. So you see here, he's assuming Minnesota wins over Utah, which I think, again, is a fair assumption. If the Clippers and Nuggets win, so if the Nuggets win the game, which I'm assuming they will, and then the Clippers beat the Warriors, it'll be Denver 4, Clippers 5, Wolves 6, Warriors 7, Grizzlies 8. If Golden State and Denver win, which, again, assuming Denver wins, then these are the 2 scenarios that I think are most likely. That would be Denver 4, Minnesota 5, Warriors 6, Clippers 7, Grizzlies 8. So I'm staying corrected. Clippers would drop to 7. Clippers are playing for a lot here because they could be 5 or they could be 7. And there's a big gap there. If the Clippers win and the Nuggets don't, then Clippers jump up to 4. Wolves are at 5. Nuggets are at 6. That would be how they play the Lakers. Warriors at 7. Grizzlies at 8. And then if the Warriors win but the Nuggets lose, It's Wolves 4, Clippers 5, Warriors 6, Nuggets 7. It's a 4-way tie for the 4 seed, the Grizzlies 8. So I know this gets a little bit confusing, a lot of numbers being thrown around. I think that the two most likely scenarios are, to start with, Minnesota and Denver win, and then it just comes down to Clippers versus Warriors and who wins that game. And if the Clippers win, Lakers are playing the Wolves. If the Warriors win, Lakers are playing the Warriors. And the other seeding doesn't matter quite as much. But if we look at those two paths, that means, so if we take the first one, Minnesota wins, Denver wins, and the Clippers win, then the Lakers play the Wolves. And I would assume Golden State would beat Memphis in that 7-8. So Golden State would be the 7 and play Houston. So in my opinion, there's a realistic shot that they play Minnesota. I would pick them to beat Minnesota. Then they would play the winner of Golden State Houston in round 2. And I would actually pick Golden State to win that series in advance. And then the Lakers would have home court in that series. So the Lakers could potentially, if this plays out a certain way, have home court in round 1 and round 2. Then the other path is Minnesota wins, Denver wins, the Warriors win. So then they're the 6th seed. So Lakers would play Golden State in round 1 with home court. And then it would be Clippers versus the Rockets in the first round. And the winner of that would play the Lakers in round 2. And I think the Clippers have a real shot. I have them a little bit behind the Warriors, just overall my West rankings, but I think they have a real shot to beat the Rockets. So in that case, the Lakers would play the Warriors. I'd pick them to win that. They'd have home court. Then potentially play could play the Rockets, but play the Clippers in round 2 and have home court in that series as well. So I think whether it's the Warriors playing the Rockets or the Clippers playing the Rockets, I think both teams have a real shot to upset Houston in the 2-7, assuming that Memphis doesn't hit like 100 threes and upset one of those two teams in the 7-8 play-in. So in that case, the Lakers could potentially be set up to have home court advantage in the first 2 rounds, assuming, of course, that they win round 1, which I think they will. So this bracket is potentially breaking in the Lakers' favor in a big way. I think Houston, depending on who finishes 4th, is the most vulnerable higher seed to lose in round 1, especially with looking at some of the potential 7 seed matchups. And so I think like the best case scenario for the Lakers is win round 1 and then advance to round 2 and play the 7 seed and have home court in that series as well. And then advance to the conference finals and play most likely OKC and then not have home court. But I mean, that was always going to be the case whenever they played OKC. So I think in a way, like, this is breaking in the Lakers' favor, and they did themselves a big favor by securing the number 3 seed, winning 50 games, and now having, like, they will know 3 p.m. whenever the other, like, all the games are technically supposed to finish at 3, but of course some games get delayed a little bit or overtime or whatever. Around 3 p.m. Pacific time on Sunday, the Lakers will know their first round matchup, and they will have about a week to prep for that. And of course, they're already prepping. They're already doing film work and models and calculations as to like who they're likely going to play, and they're prepping for every scenario. But realistically, it is most likely going to be the Warriors or the Wolves. Both teams present different challenges. With Minnesota, they have a huge front court. They have a lot of size with Gobert, Reed, Randall, and McDaniels. They have a lot of perimeter athleticism with McDaniels, Edwards, DiVincenzo, Nickeil Alexander-Walker. They've been shooting the ball at a really high level. So while in theory you can sell out a bit and just load up against Ant and even Randall to a lesser extent, all of their supporting cast, similar to the Lakers recently, has been shooting like 38, 39, 40+% on threes. So like that should work in theory, but they've been playing at a high level offensively. I ultimately doubt their secondary offensive shot creation and playmaking. I think Ant can only do so much. And even if he's getting 30, 35, 40 points a game, I have real concerns with like Julius Randle, Naz Reid as like the number 2. I think those guys slotted a little bit lower. I like that, but I don't think Julius Randle is a true number 2. And I think the Lakers also have like Rui's defended Julius Randle really well in previous matchups, previous seasons. I think DFS, Vando, LeBron, even Luka, like they have multiple big bodies to switch onto him where he can try and mismatch hunt an Austin or a Gabe. I like the Lakers' odds of like we've seen how well they've defended big men in the post, and Julius is an underrated passer, but I don't trust Minnesota's offense at the highest levels, and then defensively they really struggle to match up with Luka. We saw that last year in the conference finals, and then LeBron is LeBron, and I think he will figure that out. And I think they'll end up just playing Rudy off the floor and maybe even getting Minnesota to downsize to 1 big, because I don't know if you could play 2 bigs against the Lakers, especially if Rudy has some trouble in space. Naz is maybe the big I have the most confidence in, but he's not like an elite defensive big. And then Randall, I think obviously has a strength element to his game defensively, but he's also not very tall or like a shot blocker, rim protector type. So I think there's some limitations there with their defensive front court. They also have some limitations against Luka and LeBron. And I would easily pick the Lakers in 5 or 6. I'm kind of in between. I probably have to dig in a little bit more. I do think their ability to create turnovers, and remember the Lakers have had 2 20+ turnover games against them. Now that was pre-Luka, but that'll be tough. Then Warriors, I think that's a much tougher series in my opinion. They do a lot of the things that the Lakers can struggle with. Switch heavy defense with certain lineups just don't have a defensive weakness. Like maybe it's Steph, but they've always done a good job of protecting Steph, and they can scram switch and pre-switch, and like having Draymond switching onto LeBron or Luka doesn't neutralize them, but it's much more advantageous than having a Rudy Gobert switch or a Vitsa Zubats or pick your even Anthony Davis. We saw like Draymond, I think is more switchable in that sense. And AD is coming off the injury, so I don't think it's quite a fair comparison, either way right now. But Draymond's at a certain level defensively. He's been invigorated by Jimmy being there and them feeling like they have a real shot. Then offensively, constantly cutting, moving. I think they would test the Lakers in that sense, where I think the Lakers have had a lot of success if you're like ISO heavy or you play a certain slower style and you're a little bit more deliberate in trying to pick on the Lakers. They've done really well against those types of teams that play with pace. We've seen like you can get out, get easy buckets, get out in transition, get out in early offense. And sometimes the Lakers will fall asleep for stretches or possessions or whatever. I expect that to be better in the playoffs, but like Golden State's just faster than the Lakers. Like like Lakers are bigger, so it kind of becomes a speed versus size thing there. But at least in the last matchup, Golden State was able to leverage their speed advantage more than the Lakers were able to leverage their size advantage. So that's going to be like the chess match there of who can exert their strengths more. Then you got LeBron and Steph. You got LA versus the Bay, LA versus San Francisco, Lakers, Warriors, the beef on X and Reddit and everywhere else, social media and the internet. So like that would be box office series. Like the TV execs are going to love that series because it's going to be LeBron, Steph round 6, I guess, 4 finals, 1 first round. This would be the 6th playoff series between them, if I'm not mistaken, maybe 7, but I think 6. So that'd be fun. I know that they played in the play-in, but like actual playoffs, it would be 6 series. So yeah, I mean that would be a fun outcome. Although I think for Laker fans, like Minnesota is a more favorable first round matchup and would be an easier one. But I think the other thing you got to think about is like, so if they play Minnesota, potential second round matchup is either Houston or Golden State. If they play Golden State, potential matchup is Houston or the Clippers. So it's also like, which trio do you think is tougher? Is it Warriors, Rockets, Clippers, or is it Wolves, Rockets, Warriors? I guess the Clippers one, I think the Clippers are better than the Wolves, so I would lean that one being a little bit tougher, but I think it's really splitting hairs. It's close between the two. Both are going to present similar challenges. So that's Lakers have an idea now of the playoff path. Now watch Denver lose to Houston or something crazy happen. Minnesota lose to Utah without Anthony Edwards, and this conversation, this segment's going to be all for naught. That's part of what makes the NBA. And then final thing, quickly before we get into the Q&A here, I mentioned so health and rest updates. LeBron's groin, as I said, JJ said is going to be fine. And then the other thing is that JJ said the focus for the next week, of course, is prep and the actual game planning and film work and just the strategy element. But a big part is going to be rest and recovery, and that they're still trying to figure out the optimal schedule for next week in terms of practicing and trying to keep that rhythm. So I think that's something to watch for, is the Lakers are, I would assume, be off that Monday coming off of the Portland game, but then they'll be at home, so they don't have to travel, but then they're going to have Tuesday to Friday. And I don't think they're going to practice all 4 days, but I would assume at least 2, if not 3 of those 4 days they will practice. So that's just something to watch, is how do they go about keeping the rhythm. And JJ, I think, has been a pretty player-friendly coach up to this point, and I think will continue to be, but this is also his first playoffs. And he talked about post-game, as a coach in the regular season, you get judged by wins, you get judged by your seeding, and the playoffs, you get judged by your game plan, your strategy, your adjustments in games and in series. And then he also said, bigger picture, you get judged by your culture and do players like playing for you? Do they like coming to work? So I think he's checked the first one, 50 wins, number 3 seed. He's checked the last one. Players love playing for him. It's been a really positive winning culture this season. Second one is the one that's TBD. I think he's going to fare well based on what we've seen from the regular season in terms of his adjustments and game plans for especially the good teams. We've seen the Knicks, the Celtics, the Rockets, the Grizzlies. He's come prepared. The Warriors, he's come prepared with game plans. The Clippers, Timberwolves, you go down the list. He has come prepared. And the Lakers have fared well in most of those matchups. So that's just going to be something to kind of watch as a backdrop to everything, in my opinion, is just how often are they practicing this week? How are they prepared? Is JJ shifting it where, no, we are practicing all 4 days? Is it Tuesday, Wednesday off, Thursday practice, Friday off? How is he kind of splitting that up? Because I think a big element will be, of course, making sure this team is rested and recovered, and they have multiple guys dealing with multiple ailments that they're able to play through, but they could use some rest at the same time. They're in a certain rhythm right now that they're finally recapturing that, and you don't want to lose that. So I think that balance and that strategic approach will be interesting, in my opinion, to monitor over the next week or so heading into the playoffs. But with all that said, let's get into the Q&A. So we've got a lot of super chats already, so cannot wait to dive in. First one from Matt DeBlasi, 50 wins, 3rd seed. 2 major midseason roster shakeups, and LA is in position to go on a run. JJ has been phenomenal his first year. What a hire. 100% agree. And that's what I said at the top. JJ, again, you got to give Jeannie and Rob credit for the vision. I thought the vision was obvious, but obviously it was still a risky decision. A lot of people were skeptical, and a lot of people were waiting for that stretch of late November, early December, when the Lakers started to struggle, just waiting to bury JJ. And this guy, remember, he didn't coach above 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. This guy, no experience. This guy's so arrogant. Look at his first take segments. Look at his podcast segments. Look at him at Duke. Blah 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 blah. And now it's all quiet, right? And he's not really getting the credit I think he deserves. I think he's gotten some credit, but now that it's been interesting with the Lakers, because I was talking about this with someone today about the awards, and it's the Lakers are going to be they're the 3 seed now, And yet they're not really getting a lot of credit or recognition within the awards races. Like, I think Austin has come on later as a most improved candidate. JJ, I've heard is on like the longer list of coach of the year candidates for some people, but not like the actual ballot. And then LeBron, I think post injury, despite him being like right there with Steph and Jalen Brunson and some of these guys in terms of games played and faring favorably against those guys in some advanced metrics, he's not really being talked about as much for like first team All NBA, back of the MVP ballot. Like, it's interesting how like the Lakers having this great season, but no one really wants to give anybody credit. And like Luka can't get the credit because he's ineligible for any of the awards, but it's just interesting that it's like, well, this team's really good. They might make the conference finals, but like, we're not really sure who to give the credit to, or don't really want to give the credit to anybody. So I've noticed that. Jay Davis, yo, Buha. I think this could happen. Lakers in 5 or 6 versus Golden State. Second round, Lakers in 5 versus Houston. Lakers in 7 versus OKC. Lakers in 6 versus Boston. I agree with you. I probably a little bit more, not pessimistic, but a little bit more, have a little more reverence for Golden State in that matchup of like, I think it'd be more 6 or 7, but we're splitting hairs there between 5 or 6 versus 6 or 7. Lakers versus Rockets, I think 5 is reasonable. Lakers versus OKC, I might lean 6 just because typically when the road team wins a series, it's 6. Though I do think if it was a game 7, you have Luka, you have LeBron, you have AR, like those guys can perform in a road game 7. And then Lakers versus Boston in 6. That's one where, again, road team typically wins in 6. So yeah, I mean, and I didn't even mention this. I probably should have during the opening segment, but like Austin said it tonight, the goal is to win the championship, and he believes they could do it. And I think that's obvious that the goal is to win the championship. It's always the goal to win the championship, but I think there's a different level of confidence and belief with this group compared to previous seasons. And part of it is like you're the 3 seed. You've won 50 games. Like it is a different. They're elevated to a different status by hitting those benchmarks. And the thing that's been going around that I want to give a shout out to Dr. Jeffries with this one is 76 of the past 78 NBA champions have been a top 3 seed, and the Lakers are a top 3 seed. So does not mean they're going to win the championship, but in terms of hitting that benchmark of historical precedence, they are right there. And I think they're the second best team in the West. And even within that, I think it might just be like a 1A, 1B thing. And I would give OKC maybe the slight advantage just because of some of their continuity, just the season-long success, that they have a bigger sample size and just more reps with that group, though they've had some injuries. And them also having home court would maybe make them the slight favorite for me. But we saw they just played 2 games in OKC. They kicked their ass in one of them. They looked pretty good in the second one and had a lead before Luka got erroneously tossed. So I think it's not a bad matchup for the Lakers. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying they'd win, but I don't think they're going to lose in like 4 or 5, right? Like I think it's at least a 6-game series in either direction, and potentially the Lakers winning it. So then Boston, I think that would be the toughest series. I think they are on paper the toughest matchup for the Lakers with their style of play. They space you out offensively. I think the Lakers have at times when their defense has looked its worst, it's been with teams that have a bunch of shooting and really space you out and test their rotations, because the Lakers are a rotation heavy defense because of the scrambling and just having to cover all this ground. Like that could be something that could be stressful for the defense. And then offensively, switch heavy team, which like you can pick on Derek White, I guess, but he's still a really good defender. It's not like you're picking on a bad defender. And they tried to pick on Horford and he held his own. And maybe that's a 1-game sample, but like I think Boston's top 6 is the best top 6 in the league. Half of those guys played for Team USA. They had another guy in Jaylen Brown who could have played for Team USA if he didn't have brand beef, I guess. So That's a really good team. I'm like, I know there's the history, there's the rivalry. And look, if you get LeBron and Luka to the finals against Boston, I do think they have a real shot to win that just based on like pure hatred. And of course, their skill and talent, but that would be a fun series. But yeah, I think this path is realistic. Mitch Potter again with the herd shout out. I appreciate you. Declan Jenkins, thank you for the super chat. Big fan from Australia, Jovan, a 50-win season. Wow. Shout out to Australia. Now, I know there are a lot of viewers out there, so I appreciate you. And especially with the time difference, I want to say it's like evening, depending on like late afternoon, early evening, depending on where you are. But yeah, I mean, 51 season, it's hard to ask for more, right? Like they're going to finish with the 5th or 6th best record in the NBA. And that, I mean, remember where they were in around Thanksgiving. Remember where they were like early in January, and then look at where they are now. It's just been crazy season in a good way. Jan, excuse me. Thank you for the super chat. Which do we prefer, Wolves, Clippers, or Warriors? Among these three, I would choose the Wolves. I trust their secondary offensive players the least of these three. I think the Clipper, like each team has the apex star. Kawhi's rounding into form, so I think I would put him third right now, just based on some of his physical limitations compared to previous seasons. But like Steph, Kawhi, Ant, okay, we all agree like they're kind of all on a similar tier to some extent. I think Steph is the guy that I would fear the most, but like whatever. But then you get to the number 2s and the number 3s, and I'm about to advocate for playoff Harden, which I never thought I'd do in my life. I do trust James Harden more in a playoff series than Julius Randle. I don't feel great about either one, but like I still think for as much as Harden's drop off has been in the playoffs, it's still there's still like a baseline level that you get that again in like elimination games. But he's also in a different spot where you don't have to rely on him as much. You're going to rely much more on Kawhi. But looking at like Norm Powell's had an awesome season. Ivica Zubac, I think, should be in the running for most improved player and has gone from like a sub 30-minute, 10 to 12 point a night guy to legit 18 points, 12 rebounds. Like I think he's been a top 10, if not top 5 center in the league. So you look at that compared to what Minnesota has, then compared to Golden State. Draymond's on his Defensive Player of the Year award campaigning and like might win it partly because of that, but like he's also been awesome defensively. Like he has a real shot. Jimmy has come in, been a difference maker. Kaminga and Moody and Pods have taken some steps recently. They have their small ball identity. So I think among these three, I think they're all good teams that could push the Lakers to 6, if not even 7, depending on how they're playing. I would rank them Minnesota, Clippers, Warriors in terms of best to worst matchup. However, I will say Clippers versus Warriors is becoming closer for me. I think the Clippers have been the best team in the league for 15 games, but by net rating, and some of it's a little fluky based on their schedule, but like they are playing well, and sometimes that can help you in a playoff series. Dollar Man, yo. I appreciate you. Thank you for the super chat. Michael D, imagine telling someone in December that this would be a 51 team. LOL. I mean, shit. Imagine in early January, they had just lost 3 games in a row to the Texas teams, blown out twice. You're blown out in 2 of the 3. They had the Houston first half where they were getting crushed in the first half. And then they go and like, wasn't a fake comeback because I think they had a real shot to win that game. But still, like, Houston, I would say, was largely in control for like most of that game. So you basically had 3 decisive losses consecutively. And then, unfortunately, obviously, the tragedy with JJ and his house, and then also a bunch of guys being evacuated and displaced. And at that point, it was like, then they had to like postpone games. And it's just like, where's the season going? Like, this is slowly slipping away and like looking like a potential disaster. Or like trending that way. And then immediately, and then remember, first game back is the Miami game, and they go down early in that one. And Miami had, of course, blown them out in December. So it's looking like, are they about to lose at home to Miami after, like needing some wins? Then they have that comeback and they decidedly beat Miami. And then from that point on, they took off and won 20-24. So, it's been a wild ride. Mitch Potter, question from Peter Beck. Status of Jack's injury. Do not have an update on Jack's. I don't, for what it's worth, I don't think that's really affected his playing time. Maybe a little bit. I think it's largely been matchup based and just JJ leaning more into the centerless lineups. But it is something that with either the Portland game or with them practicing so much next week, we'll have an update on that soon. Connor Phillips, thank you for the super chat. How has the Luka trade impacted your following? I was sub beforehand, but after the trade, I've watched everything you put out. I'm sure I'm not alone. Well, I appreciate that, and I'm glad that you watch everything I put out. There was certain, up to this point, I've now been doing this about 13 months, and certainly February 2025 was the best performing month of my YouTube channel and my podcast. So I would say there's been a big boost. I think it came down a little bit. Like there was a little bit of a dip in March as I think things kind of stabilized, but there's still been steady growth in terms of average viewership, subscribers, followers, etc. But it's certainly impacted it. I would say we got 1,400 people in here. Probably pre-Luka trade, I was between 700 to 900 people on average. Now I've been kind of 1,200 plus. So definitely an increase in terms of 25 to 40%, depending on what it's been. So it's been great. I'm not gonna lie. It's been awesome. So it's been fun. Lee Baggy, thank you for the super chat. Did they say what center they're going to sign between Jemison Koloko and the one who shall not be named? Not yet. I tried doing a little bit of digging today. Haven't really gotten much clarity. So as of now, I'm operating under the assumption that they're probably just going to keep Len. But I would convert one of the two. We'll see. To be clear, I think it matters to an extent because if Jackson goes down or something and you need to rely on a center, it does. I'm not gonna say it doesn't matter, but with how JJ is using the rotation, you have the clear top 10. There's not a second center in that top 10. So barring Jackson fouling out or getting injured in an important game that they need front court help, which is certainly possible, but I would say on the lower, I think it's more likely he gets fouled out than injured, right? But barring something like that, even if that happened, I think they would probably just lean into okay, Vando, you're kind of in the Jackson role now, and different players, but he's playing that. They probably start DFS and then Vando's the backup center as he's been, depending on the lineup, and then they just really lean into the centerless basketball. So I don't even know if that if it's play smaller or lean on Jemison or Koloko or Len. I think they might just pick play smaller. So I think it matters in a worst case scenario, but I think they pretty clearly have a top 10 that JJ's not really going to budge from, and it would have to take something dire and drastic to shift that to playing one of these other bigs. And if anything, maybe Maxi Kleba is the one that is back and is cleared and is the one that plays. So I think everything matters. Every decision matters. So again, I'm not going to say it does not matter. And if it were up to me, if I was making the decision, I would convert one of the two. I think that the one I've always leaned Koloko, so I continue to lean Koloko. The other thing is that Jemison is under contract for next season. Koloko is not. So that's another factor for me of you can keep Jemison just as a two-way for next season, whereas Koloko, if you don't convert him, he's a free agent and he's free to sign a different two-way contract. He's free to sign a minimum contract somewhere. So you have Jemison under control. You don't have Koloko under control. So that would be one slight factor for me. But ultimately, I think both players are notably better than Alex Len, and either one would make more sense than Alex Len on this roster. But for now, it seems like it's trending toward like. But look, we got 36 hours or so for them to decide. So maybe tomorrow that we get the Shabs alert that they have converted someone. But as of now, it's been a little murky. But I would say a couple weeks ago it was trending toward Len, and we'll see. Keon Park, thank you for the super chat. If Maxey is healthy enough to be in the playoff rotation, whether round 1 or 2, whose minutes would JJ give to Maxey? Maxey's 3 and D, and also small ball 5. I think there's 7 guys set in stone. It's the 5 starters plus DFS and Gabe. I think 8 is close to a lock in Vando, but there might be some flexibility depending on the matchup with that. And then Goodwin, I think, is like penciled in, but not penned in. So I know, kind of making various analogies here. Like I would say that the top 7 are cemented. Vando's in pen, and then Goodwin's in pencil, and then Dalton is in crayon. I don't know. I don't know what's like below pencil. I think Maxey in like his best case scenario could push, like the best case scenario could maybe push Vando for the 8th spot in a particular series, and like everything going right for him. I think that's unlikely. It's probably more like the 9th spot is probably like the more realistic best case scenario. I think expectations should be tempered for Maxey of like throwing a guy into the playoffs who's not played with the group. It's one thing if like they've previously played, but they haven't played in a while, or they haven't played that season. Maybe they played the previous season with the group. To throw a guy in who's not played with that team under that coach. Yes, he's got some familiarity with Luka, DFS, Keefe, JJ being a teammate of his. Greg St. Jean, he was under in Dallas as well, but it is different to like throw that guy into the fire of the playoffs. So I would temper expectations with Maxey. I would assume that he probably is not in the rotation, but there is a path, I guess, theoretically for him to get there. And he is going to be on an expiring contract. So he is playing for his future to some extent, I think you could argue. But for now, I would assume it's the top 7 and probably even the top 8 with Vando. And then not, like maybe he could outplay. Maybe it's a series they need some size or they need some shooting, and they like throw him out there for like 2 to 3 minutes, see what it looks like, and then go from there. But I think that's, let's say, unlikely as of right now. Manas Sharma, thank you for the super chat. Hey man, just tuned in, so sorry if this was asked already, but do you think LeBron's worried about his groin? Also, what the heck was with Isaiah Thomas's comments? Yeah, I'll start with the second thing first. Well, so first thing, JJ said LeBron's groin is fine and there's nothing to worry about. LeBron did not talk to us, so can't share what he said. In terms of Isaiah Thomas, I thought that was in the conversation for most ridiculous thing I've seen said all season. And that's a pretty high bar. There's been many ridiculous things said all season, including specifically about the Luka trade, but about AD, about LeBron, maybe like Lakers related thing. I just like so to put this to bed, LeBron, depending on his routine for the day, but this has become more of his routine. Sometimes he'll work out twice, but in that instance, LeBron is the only player out there. He is not there with fans. He is not there with media. He is only there with like team and league photographers, videographers, like doing their thing, getting content. He gets there super early, around 2:30, 3 p.m. He goes through a warm up around 4 o'clock. Sometimes the cheerleaders are out there. I don't know if that's like an issue for Isaiah Thomas, but he goes through a warm up with his shirt off. I do not see the issue with it. Again, it is a closed environment. The clip comes out because there are people taking content of it, but like we're not at the arena then. We're not allowed in the arena then. We're not allowed to watch LeBron warm up at that point. If he comes out for a second warm up, we can see that's much later. That's closer to like 6 p.m. or so, depending on the start time of the game. But like, this was again, probably the most ridiculous. Like, this is a nothing burger, and he just took like wild shots at LeBron for I don't know. He wants to have beef with LeBron and Jordan. I don't know what's going on with that, but that was weird. That was weird. And then I saw some people I like and respect like chiming in and agreeing with it, which there's no one in the gym. And even if there was, I don't think that's like a big issue anyway. I don't like, we're in 2025. There's other things to be concerned about. Not LeBron warming up shirtless. That's just like, what are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Danica, been listening consistently, and your podcast has been such a treat for me as a new Laker fan. Hope Luka gets asked about his improved defense soon. Thank you. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening consistently, and thank you for your support. And yeah, that is a good question that, he's been asked a little bit about his defense, but I think it is worth following up with him. So that is a good question idea. Here we go, Jeremiah, with the 5 or 5 question, or 5 topic question of the show. 5 favorite funny Laker moments. Example, LeBron wearing Wendell Carter Jr.'s glasses. That is up there. I would say the whoop that trick from the Grizzlies series. I would say that's up. I would also say the bet, like, it ended up backfiring, but at the time, the Andre Drummond like bench celebration in 2021, because that was my first playoffs covering the Lakers, and it was a wild time because like fans, I think they started to allow some fans in the building, but that whole series, that whole season, excuse me, wildest season I've ever covered in my life, because it was a ghost town. We were in an empty arena. We would talk to the players through Zoom and coaches, and we had to eat outside. So it was like this weird, like, you could walk around the arena. It was entirely empty. There was no ushers, there's, a few security guards or whatever, but like completely empty arena, no concessions or stores or anything open. We had to go outside to eat and like social distance. And then we had to, Zoom in to talk to Frank Vogel, and then so that was like my first season on the beat. I'm like, I didn't even meet LeBron technically. I met him over Zoom, but like that didn't really count. So that season, I mean, the Drummond moment, like, again, it ended up backfiring, but I thought it was funny. I think the reaction to the Shannon Brown dunk that didn't count, that was, or no, sorry, the block, not dunk, but that was ridiculous. Like, that bench reaction became a meme and a GIF that I think has lived on beyond that. I think Shaq mooning Rick Fox at Media Day, I don't know what year it was, but there's that photo of, I believe it's Jim Hill interviewing Rick Fox, and you just see Shaq's ass. And then I gotta go Mark Madsen dancing at the Lakers championship parade. I think Mark Madsen dancing will always, like, that was a formative memory for me. A little bit of a traumatic one too. But no, it was, in all seriousness, Mark Madsen was the man. But that's a good one. I didn't rank them, so I just listed the 5, but I would say, again, whoop that trick, Memphis 2023, the kind of poking fun at the Suns 2021, though it did end up backfiring. Shaq mooning Rick Fox, the Shannon Brown block and bench reaction, and then what was the one I just said? Mark Madsen dancing. Mitch Potter, LBJ deserves clutch player of the year and at least second team All-NBA. Well, I can confirm he's going to be second team All NBA at a minimum for me. I am strongly considering and honestly I'm leaning toward him being fit in MVP and fit in first team All NBA, like the fifth spot, but undecided. But at a minimum, he'll be second team for me, and strongly considering him for clutch player of the year. He's been awesome in the clutch, and he's going to be on my ballot. I just have to decide where I put him, but certainly might be number one. Revs, thank you for the super chat. Street saying Denver has a chance to get 6th seed if they lose, and Wolves, Clippers, and Grizzlies win. How would you feel about that matchup with Murray back? It is true. I put it up a bit earlier. If you go back and see when I did a screen share of, I could do it now quickly, actually, just to show you that scenario. So if for the Nuggets to be 6th, the Clippers would have, so Minnesota would have to beat Utah. The Clippers would have to beat the Warriors, and the Nuggets would have to lose to the Rockets. In that scenario, with all those three things, Clippers would be 4, Wolves would be 5, Nuggets would be 6. So Wolves have the tiebreaker over the Nuggets. Warriors would drop to 7. Grizzlies are an 8, and Grizzlies are stuck in 8 until the actual play-in game when they could play their way into 7. So that would be Nuggets. It would have to be, again, Minnesota wins, Clippers win, Nuggets lose. If that happens, they will drop to 6. In terms of how I feel about the matchup, it's tough to say because I think given the history between these two teams and seeing Jamal Murray turn into Steph Curry for stretches against the Lakers for inexplicable reasons, and Michael Porter Jr. turn into like a mix of Klay Thompson and Peja Stojakovic for inexplicable reasons, and Jokic, I mean, I think Jokic has largely just done what Jokic has done. If anything, like I thought, again, going back to that February 23rd win, that arguably might have been the best defensive performance against Jokic ever. It's top 5, probably top 3, and arguably number 1. Like, I don't know if Jokic has ever been like limited like that since 2020 and him elevating to a different tier. I cannot recall regular season or playoffs like him getting shut down like that. It again, if there are other examples, it's very few. So I say all that to say I would not waver from my ranking post Malone firing of Memphis, Denver, Minnesota, Clippers, Warriors. I think that's my ranking of the 5 potential first round matchups. Now Memphis is out, so I guess I would go Denver, Minnesota, Clippers, Warriors. I think at the end of the day, for as great as Jokic is, and for as great as the Jokic Murray 2-man game can be, I just think their defense is so bad, and it's been bottom 10 for most of the season. I think they're really going to struggle with ball screen coverages against Luka. I think that like LeBron, I think, especially going back to like last postseason, I could figured out some stuff with Denver and their defense where I think he's been at a different level from like a comfortability. And part of it's been him being healthy because 2023, he wasn't healthy. But I just think he has a different level of comfort with his finishing at the rim against them. Austin has always played well against them, and we saw that again in the last couple of matchups, but even the one back in late February. So I just think that with JJ Adelman, I think was one of the best assistants in the league. So I think Adelman tactically and strategically will be in a good spot against the Lakers in terms of just like, I think he'll have them prepared. I think he'll come up with some good stuff. But I mean, look, I don't think any of those teams is like an easy series. I've been saying I think the only team that the Lakers would sweep or at most be a 5-game series, I think, would be Memphis. They're not going to play Memphis. But among the other 4, I think those are all maybe 5-game series in like a best case scenario. But I would say on average, I'd probably pencil those all in as around like 6-game series. I think it is going like those teams are all solid. And we've seen like Denver had a blowout win against LA. back in November. Minnesota's beat them a couple times. The Clippers. I mean, the thing is, a lot of these wins were pre-Luka, so that does change the equation. But I'm actually okay with Denver because of how bad their defense is. And while I think you need to be able to score on the Lakers, I think you need a baseline level of defense of at least league average, if not better. And I don't know if Denver has the horses for that. So I would be okay with it. Denver matchup comparatively to like Golden State or even like Minnesota. Shabugan, thank you for the super chat. Warriors are good, but being slightly overrated currently. We lost to them by single digits while Luka had his worst game in a Lakers shirt. I agree with you to an extent. The one thing I'll say with Golden, like, at least for me, I'm not going to speak for anyone else who talks about Golden State. I'm talking about Golden State in like the post Jimmy world. So it's not even, I'm not even like necessarily including the last matchup between these teams. Like, Lakers won the season series 3-1. And now granted, some of that, like, that was pre-Jimmy, pre-Luka. So they've only played one game. And to your point, it was arguably Luka's, I would say probably Luka's worst game as a Laker. And the Lakers were still within single digits and you know, a couple possessions away from winning that game. So I think the Lakers' margin for error is like, I would pick the Lakers to beat the Warriors. I'm let's be clear about that. I would pick the Lakers to beat the Warriors. My larger point has been, since the Jimmy trade, they have been really good on both sides of the ball. And they've been, Steph has been reinvigorated. Draymond's been reinvigorated. They've stumbled on this. I haven't stumbled, but like they've developed a higher level of their small ball identity. And I think they feel like they have a real shot. So when I talk positively about Golden State, it's more so about what they've done for like 30 games rather than like the one specific game against the Lakers. But to your point, I think there is something to the Lakers having certain like Pods hits 8 threes, Moody hits 4 threes, Kuminga has one of his better games more recently, Luka has his worst game, and the Lakers are still right there. So like that would leave me some encouragement if I'm JJ, if I'm in the film room with the Lakers. But I don't want to like overreact the other way and be like, well, there's not anything that like, you know, like, or it's like, it's an easy matchup or there's like, there are some things that, you know, I talked about this on the episode with Sean Davis last week, that I went through and looked at each category that the Lakers struggle with in losses. And I broke it down and like looked at where the biggest gaps were in terms of their wins versus their losses. And again, some of the stuff is obvious, giving up offensive rebounds, higher turnovers, etc. But I put together, it was about like 12 or 13 categories. I ranked all 5 potential first round opponents in each category on the course of the season and over the past 15 games at that point. Golden State was first in both. And I just think that when we look at the Lakers, some of their weaknesses align with some of Golden State's strengths, and especially their weaknesses and losses. So it's like when we see the worst version of the Lakers, those are things that play into Golden State's favor. And again, I'm not saying they would lose to Golden State, but this, in my opinion, is why Golden State is the toughest matchup, because you're going to need to be able to switch and defend with your bigs on Luka and LeBron. And if we're going to compare Draymond again to Zubats, to Jokic, to Gobert, to Naz Reid, Draymond is in a different class defensively compared to those guys in terms of switching onto a Luka, onto a LeBron, you know, et cetera. So I just think Golden State is better equipped to handle the Lakers offense compared to those other teams. And I think that's like a big part of having a shot against the Lakers. So do I think Golden State's going to beat the Lakers? No. Would I pick them to beat the Lakers? No. I would pick the Lakers. I just think Golden State is legit. Right now, for me, they're probably the 5th best team in the league behind the top 4, which I've talked about a lot. So for me, I put them number 5. And because I have the Lakers, I have to say, I will say, I'm considering moving the Lakers up to 3. I've been flirty with it. Moving them ahead of Cleveland, moving Cleveland down to 4. I think the Lakers might have a better shot. I think the Lakers have a better shot at beating OKC than Cleveland does beating Boston. That's like my say medium take, not quite a hot take. FDB, thank you for the super chat. With only 24.4 scoring per game this year, LBJ has finally averaged less than 25. Hashtag 20 years strong. It's an unfortunate part of his injury. And then, I think with the Luka trade, he took a bit of a step back offensively. But I think 24.4 in year 22, age 40, still pretty good. I think it's still pretty good. Kapuna Hell, thank you for the super chat. Goodwin or Gabe? I'm assuming, is this like playoff? Gabe. Give me Gabe. Look, I like Goodwin a lot. I've sung his praises many times. I think he deserved to be on the roster. I think he deserves to play in certain spots in the playoffs. But Gabe's started in finals games. He's been on a finals run as a big piece. I know there's some inconsistency there with the shooting, but he always brings it defensively. I think that on the whole, he's been a good shooter for them, and he's been a productive player. So I do view him as the seventh man within the hierarchy, but like you could do a lot worse than Gabe Vincent as your seventh man. James Cook, Jimmy Cooks, I like the name. Update on the LeBron Luka handshake. So I still have not seen it. I've been looking for it pregame. Because of the starting lineup dynamic, they don't do it. So I will get you an answer, I promise. But I have not seen it on court yet, or like pregame yet. All right, diving into the chat. Connor Phillips, any updates about your merch or channel memberships? So merch is in progress. First, I'm going through a rebrand right now. So I hired a graphic designer who he actually designed the Milwaukee Bucks logo, and he's worked for Nike, Jordan, Apple, some big clients. And the only thing was like we came to terms right before he was going on vacation. So he's been on vacation for the past 2 weeks, and he has one more week, and then he's back the third week of or around like the 20th, 21st. So we've gone through a couple rounds of edits with the brand redesign or logo redesign and like channel thumbnails and different stuff. So we're still working through that. So once that's done, hoping it'll be done end of the month, optimistically, probably into May, then that's when I can officially do merch, because I don't want to do merch with stuff that's going to be outdated in a month or something. So I've been waiting on that. Also partly waiting on memberships, because some of the logos and stuff I want to do has been like waiting for the logo to be finalized. I think I kind of want to wait till the off season to do memberships, just because I want to make sure I'm in like a good cadence and flow with it. And so I think part of a membership would also be doing a certain amount of weekly streams or like a hangout or something. And I just want to make sure like I'm not adding that to my plate like during the playoffs when it's the busiest time of the year for me, and something that I can manage. So maybe I do like a tier 1 or kind of like the initial tier, and then I add a couple tiers above that later, if that's something you guys would be interested in. And then the final update just related to all this is I will be I'm still deciding between Tuesday and Thursday next week for a meetup. Maybe I'll do a poll on that. And then I'm also going to do a poll on 4 different meetup locations around different parts of LA to kind of just make sure the most amount of people can attend. So that should be, I'll do that today, like not after this, but at some point Saturday. And then for those of you in the LA area, just vote on that and let me know which day works better and then which location works better. And then based on the amount of votes, I'll go with that. Okay, we have pretentious prodigy says hair tutorial Buha, please. So we could add that to we could do a live for that. Eeg, thank you for the super chat. Really random, but Pacers beat Bucks and Giannis is on the block this summer. You're saying in the first round. I mean, after the Luka trade, I feel like anything is possible, right? I can't rule out anything, but I mean, it does seem like. By the way, we got I'm sure you guys already saw this, but we got a LeBron tweet, and I think I know what it's in relation to. Man, I was going to say something, but it's useless at this point in my career. Anyways, more important. Congratulations, JJ, on a 51 season in the West and postseason nod. Sorry, I was just making sure I hadn't missed anything, and then I saw that tweet. I mean, LeBron's talking about Isaiah. There's no way around that. LeBron wanted to go at Isaiah. He chose he chose peace over violence. In terms of Giannis, I think there's a chance. I don't know if he asks out specifically this summer. I think 2026 has been more the summer people have been eyeing. Please don't aggregate that, although it might get aggregated now. But look, like if they lose in like 5 or 6 to Indiana, and it's like not that close or pretty decidedly in Indiana's favor, like it's possible. Now, in terms of the Lakers, I don't think they currently would have a real package for him. Like if I'm Milwaukee, I'm asking for LeBron and Austin, right? Like, so, and Lakers don't even have picks. I mean, they have a pick. So, yeah, I mean, I don't see the Lakers being a destination, but maybe he does get moved this summer. I know you weren't asking Lakers, but I know that was going to be a follow-up. People want to see the LeBron tweet, so I'll show it. I'll share it. One sec. Here's a LeBron tweet. So he says, man, I was going to say something, but it's useless at this point in my career. Anyways, more important. Congratulations, JJ, on a 51 season in the West and postseason nod. That's triple fire emoji, triple prayer hands emoji, and then the salute emoji. So I think my read on that is LeBron was getting ready to unload the clip and then decided not to. All right. 5 more minutes, then I am going to wrap. Real 5 minutes, because I am. Connor Phillips, 45 more minutes, boys. Ryan, 20 sounds good. Generational hater. I like this question. Generational hater asks, Buha, any thoughts on DPOY? This is by far the hardest award for me this year. The 2 favorites are Mobley and Green. I think Zach Lowe brought up a good point of how I've been feeling about potentially voting Mobley, in that, like, he, especially Mobley in comparison to Draymond, he just doesn't strike the same level of fear. And I think there's an element of like, he doesn't seem like it's impossible to score on him, or like he's like some impenetrable force. And I feel like, if not that defensive player of the year necessarily is this, but at least for me, it's kind of a factor when weighing all the factors. It's like if I needed one of these two players to get a single stop on like a must win possession, I would feel more comfortable with Draymond than Mobley. Now, the case against Draymond is the first 3 months of the season. I think we're better defensively than some people are choosing to claim, but like there clearly was an uptick post Jimmy trade, like starting in February with his defensive rating, with his defensive numbers, the team success, etc. Whereas Mobley's been steadier throughout the year. But I also think you could look at Mobley and be like, well, he's got Jared Allen there, who's like carrying a lot of the load defensively as well. And they're like a lot of times Jared Allen will get the primary assignment against the center, and Mobley's like kind of roaming as the rim protector, whereas Draymond kind of has to do both. He has to guard the primary, like he's guarding the Şengün, he's guarding the Sabonis, the Jokic as the primary guy, but then he's also tasked with like quarterbacking the defense and being the rim protector. So I'm pretty torn between those two. I think Amen Thompson is in the mix. Dyson Daniels is in the mix. I think those are the four guys I'm primarily considering for the 3 spots, but this has been the one that I've been the most uncertain about. And today I was going through some numbers, watching some film. I mean, it's tough. So I've gone, I would say for a bit, I was leaning Mobley. More recently, I've been leaning Draymond. I've also been talking to people about it, and in surveying NBA people, more people have said Draymond than Mobley for whatever that's worth. Like, so I don't know. JCU, Buha, who you got for most improved? Surely AR. He's on my ballot. I haven't decided where I'm going to have him yet. Like my one thing with Austin is that I think he was already really good. Like I think he has taken a leap, but part of me is like I think this is more of an indictment of Darvin and just the way that he used Austin than anything. But I think my ballot right now is going to be Austin, Zubats, and then I'm between. I guess I'm leaning Cade. My thing with Dyson Daniels is and Christian Brown. Those are two guys that are popular candidates. I don't think you should really put a third-year guy on the list. Like I think players are supposed to get better throughout their careers, and yes, I think Dyson's gotten a lot better this season, and he's in a new role, new opportunity. But like, I think a third-year guy, like unless you went from like a back end bench player to like a high level all star, and it was like that astronomical of a jump. I just think like yes, he's made a leap, but like second year guys making a leap in their third year is not uncommon. Now, him being a throw-in in the trade and like being an afterthought and all that stuff, I get that. But with Christian Brown, it went from like him being a bench player to him now starting, being in the KCP role and excelling in it. But I still think it's like he's a third year player. So I for me, kind of it by principle, I only consider guys who are fourth year and above, barring again like some astronomical leap, which I don't think Dyson Daniels or Christian Brown quite hits that mark. So, and then with Cade and Mobley, it's like those two guys were top 2 picks. So you kind of expect a certain level of production or growth from those guys, and they're in year 4. So they're like barely hitting my cutoff. So I've been struggling with most improved. That's the other one that's the toughest for me. But I think Zubats and Reeves are both on it. And then, Austin's also a fourth year guy, but I might go Cade. I think Cade's going to win it. It's probably between Cade and Daniels, but again, Daniels is a third year guy. I don't think a third year guy should win. Chris, what's up with all these NBA awards not having a clear description of what they are? That's a good point, and like that would help. It would, like, they do have like kind of a generic description of, like, most improved player, the player who improved the most throughout the course of the or this season or whatever. So like they have these generic descriptors or whatever you want to deem it. But yeah, it would be nice to have concrete outlines. Pretentious prodigy, does your wife come with you on every trip? No, she does not. She picks only the fun city she wants to go to, which I don't blame her. But she's been New York a couple times, Miami, San Francisco, New Orleans, and that's it. But that's like, I guess, 5 or 6 trips. And then, how do you handle fatherhood as a Lakers beat writer? It is tough. My son lives in Henderson, so I don't have him full time, and so that, I guess, in a way makes it a little bit easier. But being away from him is definitely the toughest part of life, let alone work. So it's a tough one. Jay says, Jovan, what are you doing with only 1 kid, bro? Need at least 3. I will have 3. Give me some time. Alex J. Cade went from 22-7-4 to 26-9-6, and his team made the playoffs. That was a huge leap. Yeah, I mean, Cade's going to win, and I think that's fine. Like, I think he went from being a back end all-star, like ranked, there's kind of tiers within the all-stars, right? Like there's obviously like the starters, but like that's almost a popularity thing. So I almost, there's like the tier 1, like alpha guys. Then there's like kind of the next tier of like, the guys that are not like top 10 guys, but maybe like 10 to 20, 10 to 25. And then there's like, because it's not technically like the top 24 guys, it's like the top 12 in each conference. There could be some imbalance, especially with the West being better than the East. There's always like 5 to 10 snubs in the West. And then the East is like, they're barely getting to 12 all-stars. So Cade went from like a back end, like 10th to 12th guy in the East, 22nd to 24th guy making the all-star team, to like, he's going to be an all-NBA guy. You can make a case for him as high as 2nd team all-NBA. And he led a team to the playoffs that, like, in my opinion, doesn't have that good of a roster. So I know like JB Bickerstaff deserves credit, Malik Beasley, Duran, Ivy pre-injury, like, Tobias Harris even coming in and just being like a veteran presence, whatever. Tim Hardaway, like they've maximized whatever ceiling they've had, but Cade is the driving force behind all of it. And that's why I hear the Cade argument, and I think he's going to be on my ballot. I don't know if I'm going to go first with him, because I think Austin being able to scale up whenever LeBron, Luka, or AD has missed time this season, and also like I think that he's done a really good, like, impressive job with his defense. And I know like the defense hasn't been, but like he's carrying a certain load, and sometimes number 2 offensively, and then also defending primary guys like on the ball, which is, maybe he's not an all defense candidate guy, but like he's still carrying a 2-way load that is pretty high. And then Zubats, I think, has just grown to a different level as a player in terms of minutes and workload, but offensively, he's shown an ability, like offensively and on the glass, he's just taken it to a completely different level than he previously was at. So I think those are my top 3 tentatively. Yes, Henderson, Nevada for those. Samir, dude, if we play Warriors in first round, what is your prediction? Tentatively, without diving more into it, and I would like to dive more into it to give you a better answer. I would tentatively probably pick the Lakers in 7. It would be 6 or 7. I am leaning more towards 7, but I'm in between, really, like as of now, in between those two. So for next week, I am going to have an initial reaction to, it might even be like Sunday. I mean, I'll go live Sunday. So I think, take a step back. I'm not going to Portland now that the Lakers secure, because they're not going to play anybody. It is, and I got hit this past week with with the road trip of just like, I need like a little bit of breathing room. I also have to do my taxes and other stuff. So I'm going to take tomorrow to kind of like recalibrate and do some stuff I've been putting off. So I'll be covering Portland game from here, but then I might, aside from, maybe I'll just turn the Portland stream into like a full, like, let's just do an initial breakdown of the matchup. And again, most likely Golden State or Minnesota. Maybe I'll do a follow-up with like a little bit more of a deep dive. And then later in the week, either Wednesday night or Thursday, I will have Clinches on like we did last year and do a deep dive on the series. And we will go through a question that we have for the Lakers, a question that we each have for the other team, our X Factor player for each team, our X Factor statistical category for the series, and then kind of some miscellaneous if there's anything we haven't covered, any interesting questions or thoughts, whatever, and then finish with a prediction and our official prediction for the series. So tentatively, I would say Lakers in 6 over the Wolves, Lakers in 7 over the Warriors. Those would be my 2 predictions. But with Wolves, I'm in between 5 and 6. With Warriors, I'm in between 6 and 7. So I'm leaving some room to change my mind. But I would pick the Lakers over either team. Eeg, thank you for the super chat. I'm sure you feel a certain way about some of these dudes who just spew random bullshit for clicks. IT tonight. Do you think the pendulum shifts in general, aside from some gems you included? NFL media is better than NBA. It's insufferable. I think it is going to shift. I think I don't really want to get into the Stephen A thing because it can be exhausting to talk about that whole situation. But I think we've seen a little bit of this more recently with like, Skip being out at Fox. And then I think Stephen A and some of the backlash that he got with the whole LeBron situation and how he handled it. And I think just some people not messing with him anymore or not messing with him as much. I think there has been a bit of a course correction with some of the hot takes and just some of the insane stuff. And I think there's still plenty of it out there. And unfortunately, it does give like, I think one of the frustrating things for me as a media member is like sometimes a one bad apple can undo everything you're trying to do. And I think for me, it's like, and again, I've talked about this before, but a lot of it's just social media where like people like to troll or say negative stuff or whatever. And players take that as like media. And it's like, no, this is a random person who has no professional or financial tie to, maybe the financial because they're gambling, but like there's a difference between someone who's, making money off of creating content around the NBA. And even that though is like a little bit different than like what I do at games and talking to players and asking questions at press conferences and whatnot. So like, and not that either one's better or worse or whatever, but I think for us and the media that's at games and kind of interacting face to face. It's like sometimes the faceless media or the faceless people on social media can troll or perpetuate certain narratives or whatever, and then it gets treated as if like we're all like that or that's what we all do. And it's like, no, like I have real consequences. Like I can't just tweet out this player sucks or say that on here. If I say that, it's probably going to get back to that player and I'm going to have to face that player face to face. Whereas random person on X can just say that, and at worst, maybe they get blocked. But like realistically, probably nothing happens. There's no response. So there's levels to it in terms of like just how people go about it, and like, so I think sometimes we get a bad rap for like certain people kind of poisoning the well a bit. And then there's like all the former player podcasts, and you got every, T-Mac, LeBron couldn't win, couldn't be good in a one-on-one tournament, or Rashad McCants is always taking shots at LeBron, and there's just people are constantly chirping, and it's just, I don't know. I think that the pendulum is swinging back though, and I think hopefully my channel does some of that. Jason Timpf with Hoops Tonight, and there's plenty of channels that I think are focusing more on the game and the X's and O's and the strategy, and like if there's storylines or narrative, it's more game specific and not as much off court just spewing random stuff or just tearing guys down. Like that's not what. And look, there'll be times, of course, like I might crack a joke or something, or but for the most part, I try to keep things lighthearted and positive, and like I try to give you my honest perspective. And it's not always positive, it's not always optimistic, but I try to strike that balance, and I try to be fair, and I also try to say stuff that if the person was in front of me, I would feel okay saying. So I think that's the standard that most people should try to have, and unfortunately they don't. And then again, we kind of got to deal with it. So I think it is shifting though back in a more positive way, and I think 2025 and 2026 you're going to start to see like the people who just say stuff for clicks are not going to last, or the audience is going to start to tune them out more, and hopefully, Zach Lowe's back. Zach Lowe's another one who I've talked about many times about just his impact for me, and how much I admire him. So I think there are people who are doing the right stuff out there, but it is fewer and farther than ideal. Yes, I guess someone mentioned Alex Len might have been the one time I maybe went a little overboard, but I just didn't understand it. Eeg, thank you for the super chat. Thoughts on gambling and what it's done to media / the game. Don't go on the dark side and take brand deals from FanDuel / DK. Gambling killed credentialed good media by platforming these garbage voices. It is. I mean, look, I don't gamble now. I have plenty of friends who do, so I don't have like a moral issue with it. I think it's gone a little overboard and become a bit oversaturated. My issue with it is like because of attending games and sitting where we sit, there are plenty of times where I'll hear fans openly talking about their parlays, and not just like openly talking about it. It's one thing to openly talk about it, whatever, like you're entitled, freedom of speech, but then they will start directing it at players. And like when players are at the free throw line, it's like, I need one more rebound, or like, I need 6 more points, or this or that. It's just like, I've talked to players, and players hear that, and it's not really fun for them. And I just think like they're, again, like I'm for like I'm fine with heckling. I'm fine with certain things. Like I'm not saying that, but like when it becomes about your parlay and your bet, I get like maybe you're a little drunk, you're or tipsy, whatever. You're having fun, but like I think there is like a weird thing that kind of happens where it becomes like a little bit. It almost enters like a different form of heckling where it becomes like you're costing me money because of this, and like if you want to do that, that's fine. Like if you want to bet and whatever, but I think if you're at a game, like I'm not a big fan about with the whole heckling players because of your parlay or your bet. Like you want to be frustrated about it, keep it. That's something you should keep more turtle. Don't like project that onto the player. I think it's, in my opinion, it is crossing a bit of a line. For me, I've had conversations with a couple of these types of places, not the two that you're referencing specifically. I've ultimately like not been able to agree to like what they want. I'm also in a weird spot because I don't really want to give like picks and stuff, and that's what like they want. So I'm just, to be completely transparent, I'm not saying I would like never do it. Like but I also don't. I'm not really. I think like the target like personality to do that because I don't gamble and I don't really want to get picks, and I think that's an element of it. So I just don't think there's like a natural partnership there anyway. But I'm always open to a bag, but I'm my goal is to never like sell out with that. So anything I partner with, I always want it to be authentic, and that's where like again, there's a bit of a gap there because I don't gamble, so I can't like sit here and tell you guys these are my picks and like gamble on this when like I don't do that. So like that's not authentic to me. So I hear you on that. I don't think it's really changed the media. I think it's empowered fans in like a negative way, and maybe there's some media members that it's affected. I don't think that's as much of it. I think it's still more like the clicks, hot take culture. Chris Jarvina, my issue with sports gambling sites is it's predatory on addicts and kids, and it also feels normalized now. Thank you for the super chat. Yeah, look, like again, I don't want to, from a moral perspective, again, like I don't have an issue with it, but I think it has become a bit too normalized in that sense. And like I think there are like the thing with gambling is it is designed for you to lose your money. And I think we all like to think that we're smarter than the house, we're smarter than Vegas, we're smarter than the platform. But like everything is designed to kind of trick you into spending money and you lose it. And again, if that's your thing, like I have no like issue with that. I just, it can be dangerous though, and there can be real consequences to it. That's it. But what up, Fang? Fang Charlie is in the building. And L, Jovan, I'll end here because I surprise, I've got a little bit over my extra 5 minutes. Jovan, what's your hottest take for this NBA season, whether it's about the Lakers or something else? I would say my two come to mind. One, I'm not there yet, but I'm getting close, and I have less than a week to make. I would make this proclamation before the playoffs start, but I am getting to the point of picking the Lakers to come out of the West. I think it's been building, but I think I'm getting there. So maybe that's not like a scorching take, but I think most people have OKC coming out of the West, right? So they're a heavy favorite and deservedly so with their regular season resume. But honestly, the two OKC games like really swung me, and I thought it was interesting that like OKC went for it that second game. Like they made some real adjustments. They didn't rest their guys. They wanted that game. They were healthy, and the Lakers were still up before Luka got ejected. So I feel like they absorbed OKC's best punch. Of course, there's OKC will adjust and tinker, and like they'll be better, as will the Lakers. But I'm really starting to talk myself into the Lakers coming out of the West. And like I'll give you three. I think there's a bigger gap between Boston and Cleveland than people think. Like, I think the more I might have said last night or the last stream I did, like 55-45. I'm the more I've thought about it and just like the matchups within that series, I kind of feel like it's more maybe 65-35. So I think Boston, despite not being the number one seed, despite some of the regular season matchups being close, I do think Boston would beat Cleveland, not like easily necessarily, but like I would almost lean closer to a 5-game series than a 7-game series, and I think that's a little hot. And then I think, again, not the hottest, but I think Houston's going to lose in round 1 to whoever they play as the 7th seed, barring Memphis having an amazing game against the 7th seed and jumping up to 7. That would be the one scenario in which I don't pick the 7th seed. But if it's the Warriors, the Wolves, the Nuggets, I think those are the only, or the Clipper. I mean, any of those four, I think technically could drop to 7. I would pick any of them over the Rockets. Okay. All right. I'm going to wrap here. Alex Shea, do the Rockets scare you at all? They do. I don't think the Rockets are bad. It's more the offense for me. But we'll see. I could be wrong. You wanted a hot take though. Hen L, thanks for your time, Jovan. You were awesome on the herd. Thank you. I appreciate it. Good place to wrap. I'm going to wrap here. I appreciate you all so much for watching and listening tonight. We're crossing 1,400 plus for a lot of the show. Appreciate you all. Shout out to the late night gang. I will be back on Sunday after Lakers Blazers. Remember, it is a 12:30 p.m. Pacific time start. So I will not be at the game. So I'll probably go live around 3:30, 3:45, and we will know who the Lakers are playing at that point. So that will be exciting. A lot to look forward to. Lakers are the 3 seed. They won 50 games, in a really good spot to at least make the conference finals, if not go further than that. As I said, I'm deliberating picking that, but we'll be pondering that for the next 48 hours or so. But thank you all again. For those watching on YouTube, please be sure to hit that subscribe button, turn on channel notifications, and like and comment on this video. For those listening on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your podcast platform of choice, please be sure to follow, download, and leave a 5-star review. I'll be back Sunday. I will talk to you then.